Hi everybody, it's been such a long time since I've uploaded a video to my YouTube channel. I'm so sorry. It's not that I don't like to talk on the video, it's that I really don't have any time. So we are in quarantine, and as a hairstylist that likes to talk to people, get together with people 6 days a week, I am at this beautiful new space that I really wanted to share with you. So I'm going to back up and tell you a little bit about myself, basically my testimony. There are so many people out there, so many new clients, so many new just circles that I've come into because of what myself and what I've been asking God to do in my life, and what my husband and I, Joshua, are working on, and then what my stepson and I are building together as a family. So I hit my 20th year in doing hair this year, the same year that a quarantine has happened. And I find this just extremely interesting to me because about 6 years ago, in our 10-year relationship, Joshua and I, we've been together 10 years this December. We have seen so much change in our lives in a decade. Now, we've had ups and downs because we met after my divorce. I was married to a much older man. For a short period of time in my 20s, I decided that I was going to marry a much older gentleman, and I realized that based in my selfishness of trying to do it my own way and trying to see life in my own way, I had made a really poor decision to marry somebody that wasn't interested in me. And I go through this treacherous divorce. That's a whole other video. Learned so much about my walk with God, so much about the marriages that I'm surrounded by that I want nothing to do with. That was the issue. And when Joshua and I met, we started fresh and clean, and we liked each other so much. We still like each other so much to this day. We are best friends. We're inseparable. So many of you who know us know that, but we went through a really difficult time in our relationship because his idiosyncrasies came to the surface. So did mine. And we didn't know they were coming. We didn't know what was going to be revealed in our life. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is because what I'm talking about that happened to us 6 years ago, people are experiencing right now in this quarantine. But for Joshua and I, this is nothing because we actually are at a better place in our lives 6 years later during this quarantine. And this is what God has been speaking to me about. So let's back up again. When we got together, Joshua and I had already been married, so we didn't get married right off the bat. We lived that live-in sin, and we were having the time of our lives. Now, the people around us didn't understand that because the people that we had centered ourselves around, mainly my family, they love the rules. Rules are what we go by. While we break them all across the board with debt or overeating or talking about each other behind each other's backs or laziness or insecurities or doubts or just a genuine walk with God. Meaning when you look at this person's life, you can see where it's at. All of these things were coming to the surface in our lives, and we were fighting them. And if you're surrounding yourself with me, you will find that I rebel against laws. I have a tendency to look into something. I have a tendency to stretch that line. I draw closer to an issue and I explode it. I can't stand the drama of pretending everything's going to sit under a law, because then we're not being real about the struggles that we're going through, at the decade that we're in, the choices that we're making, at the age we're at. Not the age of everyone around us, the age we are at, the time in our life. Some people are going to be able to relate to us and some aren't. But during that time in our lives, the pain and insecurities of my childhood, my teenage years, my young adult years, based in my family tree, the same on his side, it boiled to the surface. And we didn't really know that because living with one another, we value each other so much. We love each other so much. But he came from no money. I mean, he was from the welfare system, and I was from the beauty industry. You give 50% to 65% of your, or 45% of your income away, and you don't get your sales, and you need to do side work if you really want to hustle, do weddings and do proms and friends' hair. And I didn't get into that stuff. I had a small wedding business on the side before I opened up Sheer Passion 8 years ago. But what happened right after we got together, I opened my own business And no one that I had ever been around before had helped me reach that goal. I mean, how long did I have this goal? I wrote this goal down when I was 17. Every single relationship in my life that I came up on didn't have those strong structured factors to look at me and say, Laura, what do you have that would help you maintain this business? But Joshua, who came from nothing, the guy came from nothing, had nothing. And he was the guy that God had centered me right alongside because he had these hidden strengths that only my desires and my dreams brought up in him. So in the very beginning of our relationship, it looked like we got this. It does not matter what you send our direction. We've got this. It is going to be totally fine. First of all, we're both big people. We're both very strong people. We can manage ourselves. And then shortly after that, some things started creeping up. Yes, things were happening left and right in the family tree, left and right, while the business was open. But I was building my business. And what was so great about that was he had helped me build this business. But while I was cutting hair in a brand new space, I was building the new Laura. I was no longer that stylist that was sitting under the umbrella of the other salon owners. So I was truly, genuinely developing my name, the types of haircuts, what I would charge, what I would be doing, what services I would have, what things I would bring into my salon, what products, what was my mantra, what was my niche? Well, how was I going to be different than every other salon that had ever opened up around me or that I worked for? But see, people just saw the old hairstylist Laura. They didn't see what God had been developing since I was 6 years old. And they hadn't seen that all of these wonderful, intricate obstacles that I had gone through, all of the childhood counseling that I had gone through. Please, if you ever want to know about the counseling that I have gone through, my story is so interesting. I love to share it with you. That's another video. All the counseling, all of the bad relationships, the bad boyfriends, how young I was when I moved out. That's a very interesting story. How young I was when I bought my first house. How did I have that much money when I bought my first house? I'm telling you, at 21 years old, I had money coming out my ears. 21 years old, cutting hair. And I was cutting hair for the third of the price that I cut hair for now. 20 years later, I've tripled my income. And it's insane. Now, that might not mean anything to you unless you're pushing yourself with your income. But in this industry, you can truly, sky's the limit in this industry. If you want to keep growing, you can do that. And I'm really a nobody from a small town, and I do very well cutting hair. So we get back to Joshua and I. He was my best friend. I have never had anyone like how sassy I am, how mouthy I am, how driven I am. I wouldn't say that I'm bossy, but I am definitely not a follower. I lead. And if you do anything behind the scenes, if you got any debt racked up and you're taking money from other people, you have bad eating habits, bad body habits, bad hygiene, and you are pointing your finger at everybody else, you got marriage issues, you got friend issues, you got house issues. We all struggle in those things. But it's different when you find yourself in a circle of people who are verbal about things you do wrong, while we aren't verbal about fixing the things we know we do wrong. Now, I love to talk about anything. And for once in my life, God brought one guy who saw my tenacity and my drive and my passion and the fact that I was in a career for 15 years and I was only 33 years old. And he had never met anybody before that had liked her job. I don't just like my job. I love my job. He didn't meet anybody who talks to people, even when I'm at a stop sign. You ever talk to people when you're at a four-way stop? I'm looking over at the other driver, like waving, honking, racing them, letting them go first, tipping my hat, shaking my hair out. Joshua's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm very extroverted. I say everything out loud. I talk everything out loud. I do everything out loud. That's just my personality. Some people like it, some people don't. I found that most people didn't because that's what built confidence in me. I love talking about things because if it's something that's on my mind, I feel like my brain is able to talk about it, find a solution. He saw that in me, and he was the first person who didn't see it as a negative. That drew us so close that we were able to weather this storm that I'm going to tell you about. We opened up the business, and I had decided that my family tree was not something I would like to be a part of. I have no judgment towards anybody in my family tree. I only want to judge my next decision. So what I did was I looked around and I saw how everyone had been treating one another at holiday gatherings, treats one another inside of a house, treats the president, treats the media, treats their own home, their own gardens, their own friends, their own churches. I didn't want any part of it. I didn't like the outcome of their lives. I saw the sum of all their choices, and I didn't want to be like them. There's no judgment on them. There's only judgment on myself. And I decided that I was so tired of the mundane and the last minute and the incapability of just speaking to one another, seeing our God use our walk to take us forward. I stepped away. When I stepped away, it wasn't in secret. There were multiple leadership teams. There were multiple people praying for interventions. People don't want to get involved, and that is okay. But I had to do that. See, I had to do it out loud. I had to do it in front of people. There are some people, if you had them get on this video and tell you that they had to take a step away from their family, it would be the most negative thing in the world. They'd be almost dead. That's just not what happened in my life. Now, you do have to go through. I was with them for 32 years. On some level throughout the year, I would have to interact with them. Mostly not positive. I thought we had the space of the salon, but we didn't. It became aggravating. It became about money, and it became about time, and it became about things that really just were immature. We're very immature in our walk as a family tree. We haven't grown in our walk. We haven't grown in who we are as people in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We haven't accumulated any kind of maturity in thinking, and then the outpouring of our things, and our lives are not run well. I did not want Joshua and I to go down that track. We already knew that our family trees were not healthy, but we came off those family trees, and then we thought we had it because we had had that conversation. Not that we were better than anybody. That's not the point. That we figured it out, and we weren't going to end up like that because we were people who brought the subject forward, put it out on the table, looked at it, and decided to be accountable to that so we could change. We didn't know what we didn't know. Now, you might have heard somebody say that before, but it was only applicable 6 years ago when we fell in deep. Right after my wedding, about a year prior to my wedding, my second wedding, which some people think people shouldn't get remarried. Oh gosh, that's another video that we can do. Clearly, I'm living in grace. Clearly, God has flooded my life with grace and forgiveness because my life emulates that. I can show you what I've accumulated, how I've dealt with my health and my wealth, what types of relationships I center myself around. I have a second husband and a stepson that no one believes we are a blended family because the spirit just emulates from all three of us. So I could not see what was going to happen that year between my youngest sister's wedding and our wedding. We didn't talk to the family. The family wasn't talking. We really just don't like each other. There's really little amounts of respect. And so when you don't respect each other, you find that you don't want to talk to one another. So what ends up happening? Silence. But in a marriage, Joshua and I couldn't choose that. So we had to sit and talk about these things. Right before he got married, I was getting so flustered. It's like I had all these dreams written down when I was 17 years old. I have dreams from a dreams. I got plans from a plans. I am always doing something. That's how I'm designed. And Joshua, being my very best friend, would grab to that. And every time I'd tell him an idea, he'd be like, that's the best idea I've ever heard. And on some level, I did know that he's my husband. He loves me. He could be biased. He's genuine. It was a good idea. 99% of my ideas are good. It's whether or not we should be involved in them. I swear I should be paid to be an idea person, whatever that is in corporate, where I wear fancy jackets, pop my collars, come in, find solutions for people. I would love that job. I am a thinker. And every time I came up with an idea, Joshua was my yes man. We lived on that. Can you even imagine what my husband was going through coming from a family 3 times as toxic as my family tree? He had nobody. He finds me to be the most interesting person he's ever come upon. And I'm talking to him all the time. I'm running ideas by him all the time. And I've never had a yes man in my life. I've always fought the leadership, fought the churches, fought the people, I fight everybody. I'm known for that. And he's my yes guy. So every time I have an idea, every time I want to do something, every time I have a new hair color or a new outfit or a new car or a new want or a new desire, or I look better, my skin looks better, my teeth are better, my body's stronger, Joshua was my yes man. Now, I had never had that. That was like a drug. If there was ever a drug in my life, it's not sex, it's not money. It is him seeing my brain and saying, yes, I see you. That's going to work. That's a beautiful idea. We almost killed ourselves in this relationship, in the very infancy of our relationship, doing that. Because even though we thought we were communicating, we weren't. We were actually hanging ourselves. We were putting so much stress on ourselves because instead of recognizing that we needed to be able to verbalize that, he would have needed to say, Laura, that is a fantastic idea. Honey, you need to find an outlet for that. You need to call somebody. You need to send away for a patent. You need to get a part-time job. You need to think seriously about how much you talk because it's a lot. Whatever he would have said. And I had somebody who would listen, but instead of saying, yes, I agree with you, I heard, yes, let's do it. So I said, you should open up your own business. Why should Joshua open up his own business? Because I had opened up my own business? No. He's super smart. He is so strong. My husband has the strength of 3 men. He's huge. 6'3", 305 pounds. My husband can flip cars. He's so strong. I wanted him to utilize that. He was one of those people that God had given these special, weird strengths. He wouldn't utilize them. Very bizarre things. Extreme amounts of strength, but he doesn't use it. He doesn't make money on it. He is so brilliant that even though he came from such a poor background, he had a full ride to Colgate University, everything paid for, had roommates that drove brand new Mercedes-Benz. He had nothing. They fed him throughout college. He plays football. He aces at football. He only played football his senior year and got recruited to Colgate University. He was so poor that he couldn't play all of those years in high school. He played his senior year and gets a full ride. He's that good. So I said there's more untapped ability inside of his head. He needs to open up his own business. Here's where I messed up. When we met, I told him about all the brain therapy I did as a child. That's why I was able to beat childhood obesity and then not gain weight as I became an adult. While I had told him about my counseling and my brain therapy that I did, he was the only person that was intrigued by it, but he was also one of the hundreds that knew about it and never asked me about it. I speak about it. I share about it, but everyone in my family didn't, even my biological family, immediate family members, never stuck with anything long enough to see change. Why would I think that after all of these years, excuse me, let me hang this up. Why would I think that anyone would want to go to this counseling with me? So on some foolish level, I guess I thought I could help him, right? Because I was going to take my strength. He liked me so much. If he made any mistakes in his business, I would help him. I knew he was going to struggle with confidence. So I was like, what did I do when I started my own business? I felt like a subcontractor since I was 17 years old in beauty school. In beauty school alone, I stuck out based on the way I ran the desk. And then I was a manager for Fashion Bug. Do you remember that? I was one of the youngest key holders to manage a retail store, to pay for beauty school at the age of 17. I felt like I got this. I had an apartment by the age of 18, house at 21, paid for my entire divorce, have gotten 4 jobs on my own by walking into salons and getting, did I have 4 jobs? 3 jobs on my own. The 4th one was mine. I hired me. I would hire me today. I loved it. I thought, this is fantastic. I did do the brain therapy. I did reverse the bad information as a child. I did reverse all of the neglect where my brain needed stimulation. My brain needed certain things for me to thrive as a young adult, and I didn't get it, but I chose to get it later in life. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity to take what I learned and guide him. We fell so hard. We have never fallen so hard. Actually, I said if we ever fall that hard again, I'm done. Because we are the two people that are in charge of this. And if we are not communicating and we end up at such a low spot again in our relationship, while saying we're fully invested and fully here, we're not ready. Especially if it's in our control. See, this pandemic is not in my control. The government has shut my salon down. My salon is brand new and fine. It's right outside these doors. I'm not running that. Somebody above me is running that, and I'm sitting patiently waiting for their leadership to say that it is okay. And I'm trusting in the Lord first, and then the leadership, that these things are doing what we need to do to get things changed. I believe there's two sides to every story. But back then, we were beginning to hang ourselves. Now, at our wedding, we had read these beautiful vows. We had sent these vows off to a pastor, and when we got to our wedding, my family was not invited. Joshua's family was not invited. But we mentally, spiritually knew we were going to go into this life with the Holy Spirit taking roots down into the ground, and we were going to move forward and we were going to serve. And I wasn't looking back. I had had 32 years of drama. I was going to try 32 years of no drama before I had any intentions. And so I was like, enough is enough. I love accountability. If we're true about accountability, then we'll all get counseling. But that also included Joshua. And for some reason, the minute that we walked off that altar after having almost intertwining vows, God led, Spirit filled. He let us go down the hardest road I have ever been on in my life. I talk about it a lot in the salon. It was as if we were on this beautiful road and we went into cul-de-sacs. We came off the road, we went into a cul-de-sac, and when God was done refining both of us, we came back, looked at each other as we came out of the cul-de-sac, held hands, and moved forward again on that road. Now, the cul-de-sac was like almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. Now, when we came out of the altar, we're looking at each other flying high. And 6 months after our wedding, we had hit rock bottom, what I thought was rock bottom. Joshua wasn't making any money. He wasn't out pushing himself. He wasn't trusting in himself. And here's what I had already said to him. I love to think about things. I love to write out timelines. I love to think about the mind. I love to think about the spirituality of it. I love to think about the physicality of it. I knew he was going to hit rock bottom if he did not get confidence in getting customers, getting repeat business. And if he didn't drum up business, he would feel worthless because every day the phone's not going to ring for you because no one knows you have your own business. You have to constantly be putting your business card out, calling people, cold contacts, door to door. So asking people for business, kind of a thing. Now, I had done it so long ago as a young person that I said I was going to help him do this, but he struggled with that. He was embarrassed, so he literally refused to do it. Now, I make enough money that I can provide for us. We are best friends. We loved being together. For the first time in our life, he would come over to the salon. He would clean up the house. He would do all the errands. And for a while, it was kind of like, I'm all right with it. Like I make enough money that I can provide for us, but in the back of my mind, I'm very turned off by lazy people. I don't care if you're male or female. If you're lazy, we got to talk. Because there are so many things that can be done during the day that have nothing to do with money. But laziness, I just can't stand. So I was feeling resentment, and it was building and building and building, slowly building in me, because I need to see a man working. Now, he doesn't need to out-earn me, but he does need to be earning. So there's a big difference. We also have another issue that we need to talk about. I have a stepson, and we pay child support. That child support comes out monthly. Now, he didn't call the government and ask to lower that rate because he was opening up his own business. He had an option to do that. He didn't take that option. We talked. I have enough money coming in. If we need to pay her during the weeks that are low, I make enough money. We can choose to do something less in our personal life to make sure that bill is paid. Months go by. We're up to a year of Joshua having his business open. No income in the home. His customers were here and there. He'd make $20, $40, $60. That's nothing. That doesn't afford groceries. That doesn't pay a bill. So maybe gas in his truck, kind of a thing. And I was kind of getting frustrated at him. And in the month, I would say to him, where are the child support payments going? Like, how are you making child support payments? You're not coming to me. You're not asking me for money. We didn't have our accounts connected. So I had to trust him. Now, I knew he wasn't making any money, but I also knew his account wasn't at zero. So he could go for a while making $100 payments weekly, 119 or something like that, $121 payment. So it comes out to $450. And I don't know if the Lord has ever done this to you, but my walk is so intense. That's the best thing in my life, is my walk with the Lord. My ability to talk to him, my ability to listen, my ability to wait, my ability to be real. If I don't want to be patient with God, I tell him. If I'm struggling with something, I tell him. If I'm thankful for something, I tell him. If I want favor, I ask for it. If I want wisdom, I demand it. I love my relationship with God. And my heart was really heavy. And I'll never forget that morning that I woke up. I literally sat up out of the bed at 7 o'clock in the morning, and money is coming right across my forehead. Money. And I look over at Joshua. He's asleep. Men can sleep through anything. I am looking out in the room, and I'm like, I don't have an issue with money. Like, I work hard for my money. I know how to save it. I know how to spend it. I know how to make it. And what? The person who has issue with money is this guy. So I wake him up, because now I'm freaked out. The Holy Spirit has me awake thinking money. He doesn't tell you everything. He wants you to communicate. He wants me to either ask him questions and wait for his wisdom, or check in with my partner. So I wake him up. He sits straight up, freaked out, because I smacked him to get up. I go, do you have something you need to tell me? And he goes, why would I need to tell you? Why would I need to tell you something? I go, are you hiding something from me? Are you like something with money? Very specific. I will never forget this day, because I told him if we ever go through this again, he will have to run for the hills, hide himself, because he will be out. He will be out. Ladies, gentlemen, whoever is watching this video, my sweet best friend in my entire life looks directly at me and says, no, says it right to my face. I get up, because I am just wrecked, because now I'm thinking about the same thing I have been thinking about, but now God has me in it, and I'm thinking about it now. Yeah, we do have money problems. We do. Like, money shouldn't make me this upset. You know, like, I'm upset now. So I'm cutting up squash for breakfast. 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody comes to your door at 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody. UPS does not deliver then. FedEx? No. Amazon? We get a knock. And then the doorbell. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So Joshua comes from the back of the house, walks to the door, walks through the front door as if it's not a big deal that someone's at our door at 8 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't like look at the door, go, who are you people? No, he goes outside as if he knew who was at the front door. I'm still in the kitchen. Logan's in his bedroom. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So then he comes back inside. This time it's with 2 constables. He's getting arrested. You got it, folks. He had not paid his child support in like 5 months, and his ex-wife had reported him, and they were going to take him off to jail. Now, as a hairstylist, I've seen this happen so many times. I've seen it happen to bosses. I've seen it happen to men while they're at the salon. I've heard the stories. I've heard the women tell the stories. I've heard the women who called and put their ex-husbands in jail. I know all about this stuff. I know more than most people about these things because I'm a hairstylist. That's not the part that freaked me out. The part that freaked me out was the bad behavior. We said we would do certain things when we got divorces. Divorce comes with responsibility. Divorce comes with consequences that sometimes go years into your life because you got out of the bad marriage, but you have some baggage that you have to work out, and you have to learn to trust that the Lord is going to give you a way to put that bag down. And the Lord will give you a way to do that. Sometimes your consequences go a little further. Child support is one of them. Now, a lot of people are going to argue with me on here and say, oh, it's not a consequence, you're taking care of the child. Adults watching this video, we already know all of that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I don't like in adults. Of course you want to take care of the child. This story is deeper than this little video is going to give you a glimmer into our life. This is a shaving of what we were going through. I am happy that those constables came to pick him up, because I want to be married to a man that is allowed to be held accountable at any hour of the day that someone comes knocking on our door. I don't worry about people come knocking on my door to arrest me because all the hours that I've lived prior, I'm aware of. Now, obviously he lied. That shook our marriage upside down. Now, if you remember, we had stopped. We have no relationship with his family. We had closed the door on my toxic family, and we were by ourselves, and we're dealing with his ex-wife. We're still dealing with his ex-wife, but this quarantine, and I'll get to that, which is so special. 6 years ago, all of these things were colliding and shifting our movement. So he gets taken off to jail, and I yell out to the constables in the living room, and I'm like, what's going on? And they were like, who are you? And I go, his wife. And they look at him and they go, what? Now remember, it looks like a guy who has nothing, isn't paying his ex, is now with a woman. The one guy said he thought he was my brother, like I was taking care of him. How embarrassing. But I was. That's what I was doing. Now, living it didn't feel like that. Until the day that he got held accountable, both of us were held accountable for what we were doing up until that day to lead us to that point that somebody could be taken away for not paying child support, while I thought I had been talking to him and I thought I had been communicating. That is the moment that God put us on the path. He took us off the main path where we thought we were doing fine, split us into a cul-de-sac that would bring us all the way back around to where we needed to be refined and could start new on the other side. Still seeing each other the way we see each other, best friends, knowing how we can hit rock bottom. We hit rock bottom emotionally. We hit rock bottom sexually. We hit rock bottom financially. We literally almost lost it all. So we lived in my home. He goes off for 4 days. I'm left with the little guy. I had to deal with the ex-wife. She's still just as crazy as she was 10 years ago. She's going to need to deal with God all on her own. I turned my house upside down because I needed to understand what had happened, and I found all of those answers. We decided back then to become vegan because I needed something to focus on while Joshua decided to get counseling, while he decided to work on himself, while we both decided to realize, I'll never forget this when he came home, we both realized, while we love each other, that is not enough. And whatever we were missing in our brains and our communication leading up to that day, we wanted. So see how positive it was? Even though we had done all of these mistakes, we wanted what we were missing to make it better, so we never ended up there again. I was freaking out. Do you know how many years of counseling I've had? Do you know how many thousands of dollars I've spent in counseling? Do you have any idea the hours I've sat on a couch talking to somebody who never held anyone else accountable in the situation, but just loved to hear me go about how it wasn't working out well? And I was like, I don't know if I can hold on. So then I was like, fine, I'm going to ask for a favor. I want God to speed up Joshua's time because Joshua's smart enough to get it. He also lives with somebody that gets it. And I'm not going to put him back into that rat race because I've already done the counseling and love to find solutions, no matter how toxic the relationship issue is. So I looked at him and I said, I can't believe this, but I was the one with the issue. I should have turned to you and asked if you would have been willing to go get the counseling that I did when I was a young girl. And I've never asked that question out loud to anyone in my life because I never had a relationship with anyone enough, deep enough, rich enough, satisfying enough to be able to look at them and say, do you want to have the counseling that I had so you can be free of what's going on in your mind from your childhood to your young adult years? Not that you blame the families for everything, but you need to be accountable to the brain mapping, the way your brain actually does work, the choices you do make, the outcomes of those choices, and whether or not they are a blessing to you and your community. So I don't know why, other than I had never, ever asked it before. So why would I ask it to him? And I realized that is because I had never actually held anyone else accountable to have what I have. And even though I had shared that I had done all of this counseling, people share about God all the time. people don't take him up on salvation and eternity and a genuine relationship. People talk about their relationships with God all the time. That doesn't mean people stop going to church, hearing his name, but don't develop a relationship. People know what dill weed is, but they don't know how to go buy the seed, find the seed, come back, put it in the garden, plant it, water it, how much sun it gets, and then the outpouring of the relationship when the dill comes to harvest, all of the recipes and the sharing with your neighbors that you can have because your dill plant is actually growing. And that's how I feel like my relationship with God is different than just going to church, hearing about dill. I know how to plant it, grow it. I know how to go through a famine. I know how to go through an abundance. So I'd like to say I'm working on those hybrids where you can splice the plants and splice the seeds together. That's where I'm going with my relationship with God. But back then, we knew we were going to need to catch every penny. Over the next year, bills came in, fees came in, taxes weren't paid, and he had to go back to a menial job making $10 an hour. So as a woman who was increasing my pay, I watched my husband go back to $10 an hour, and I was disgusted. And then I had to change my perspective. I had to be okay with a man walking the walk, a man taking responsibility, a man going to counseling, a man having a job, a man showing me that he cared. That had to be enough. Now, it wasn't enough every day. It just wasn't. I flipped out. Like every other day, I had like a mini panic attack. We didn't sleep together. We didn't have any sex. I said, anytime we would have normally had sex, we need to be working on our life. We clearly don't know what we're doing. We hit rock bottom here as young adults. I'm not doing this again. We've had sex that still led us here. Let's try the no sex, get serious, figure out our lives. 6 years later, Joshua makes a six-figure income. He went from $10 an hour to 6 figures. His bonuses at his job are ridiculous. During this quarantine, Joshua has gotten another raise, and he has gotten the next largest raise that the company has seen in 40 years. He gets 2 raises coming in the next 6 months that they haven't had in 40 years. Joshua loves his job. When I say loves his job, that man will have 14 to 15 hours of overtime a week, and he never looks burdened because of it, because he loves his job. He uses his mind and his power and his strength in his job. He found a job that took his brain power, his ability to learn. He has a degree, and then his strength. So he gets best of both worlds. He's also one of the youngest guys there, and he's super attractive. My husband is super attractive. He is loving life. Back then, 6 years ago, I didn't think we were going to make it. I knew that God could do a big work in us. But at that level, there are days where you just can't breathe. If you breathe, you cry. If you aren't crying, you try not to breathe too deeply because you know if you do, it's going to come out. I had to go to work every single day. I lost clients because of what we were going through. People would say, how you doing? And I would say, not so great. And then they would say, why is that? And I would say, we're struggling at home. And people didn't want to be burdened with that. It's funny now because we're not struggling. And while we were going through that, that's real people. So that's us. That's us as people. I don't understand why we get so caught up. The struggle never extends for too long. It's a struggle, and then there's a new day. If you ask me in a week what I'm going through, it could change. I just like to be honest. I don't like to lie about things. It is what it is. So we were going through that moment, but I also believed we could find solutions. If we could look at the struggle and not like it, we would need to find solutions. So he kept working up through his jobs. He kept trying to get better jobs. And yes, it felt futile, but we kept praying. And we don't do these little popcorn prayers. Like, we do real prayers, like the real personal human issue, the real desire, the real dream. If you know your mind can do something, but you don't think that you are going to be the guy to be picked, you need to ask God for favor. You need to actually ask his favor on you because you trusted in him and you decide to live your life so fully for him that you are saying, choose me, because I'm acknowledging that you have enough power to do that for me. I'm saying I'm not enough. I have a lot of great qualities that you've bestowed on me. I need that extra. That extra only comes from you. Place it on me. Put it within me. Let it shine. Allow me to do more work. Guide me. Give me wisdom. Who do I need to call? So these were the types of things that we were going through as I was also still developing my business. There were days where just chewing our food beside one another on the couch was all we could do, because it was as if God had spliced us right open, poured out all of our guts and let it fly onto the table. And we were seeing all of the blackness inside of ourselves that we had never even identified before. But because we had loved each other so much and filled in those gaps from our youth, we were starting to realize we needed so much more in our chest cavity and our brains to go further, and we didn't have it. And until God had allowed us to hit rock bottom so that we would literally just not go anywhere and wait on him, then he knew he could refine us and put us back on the road and give us that leadership role that we would like to be for young married couples. So we go a little further. We start getting our footing, and we start trying to be intimate again. That in and of itself almost killed us, because we felt like pupils in front of God, trying to grow and trying to be better. And as we were getting better, we also wanted to be in love with each other again. But there was this like rawness to both of us that we had been so hurt, not necessarily by one another. We're not malicious to each other, but we had been so hurt. And hurt's relative. Hurt from your childhood, hurt from young adult, hurt from jobs, hurt by yourself. It feels the same. And so when you look across the room at one another, you are broken down for a little while. Not broken in half, just broken down for a little bit. And you try to put on a great face, but it's not always a great face. We worked through that. We saw each other there. We saw every horrible, weak thing about one another in that year. Almost lost the house because the taxes weren't paid. They were going to, I don't know what happened. I thought we'd had money. What even hurt worse. Never thought we could hurt this much. We looked back over the year to see how much money we made. We made plenty of money to pay our bills, pay our taxes, pay the child support. We weren't communicating. We thought we were communicating. I thought I was communicating. I would shake this man. We weren't communicating. We had never looked at the actual dollar. David Ramsey, some of you probably follow him. We read his book. We thought we were there, but we weren't. And God wanted to make sure that we could get there. And that's how we know what we are doing today. So this quarantine's like a walk in the park for us, because we completely transformed our lives. Over the last couple of years, we bought a property. We put the salon on the property. I own my salon. So I am my landlord. So when you shut things down, it's a major vacation for me. I'm used to working 6 days a week. I'm used to increasing my pay if I need to by working more hours, taking more clientele. I rarely take a vacation. Right now, this video is being taped on the longest vacation I have ever had in my entire life, and it is government mandated, and no one can go to another salon because we're all shut down. So I'm not losing business. I can't take the business. Come on. That's insane. So I'm forced to quarantine with all the other salons in the area so I don't lose business. I think that's pretty intense. I've never shut down this long. I've only ever gone on a vacation. My honeymoon was 5 days. So we go further. Logan has made a decision to live full-time here in this house. He's 16 and a half years old. He's learning how to drive. He has his first job. But as a family, we've been struggling for 10 years for the child to actually live inside of our home. He is old enough now, bold enough now, intense enough now to actually verbalize out of his own mouth and his own body that he is living in this house. We have seen in 10 years a complete dynamic shift in our relationship. When my husband and I met, he could not take care of the bills or a family. 10 years later, during the quarantine, he's the only income into the home and can cover any bill and the extras, because if you see behind me, I'm in a very old farmhouse. You can actually see there's renovations up on that's our second floor. We live in a farmhouse from the 1800s that every level of this house is themed and will be rented out, including our attic, which we turned into a tiny house. We took 227 feet and made a tiny house in our attic to sell for tourism to Hershey Park, which is 2 minutes right outside of our front door. Tourism shut down right now, so that gives us time to finish up our guest house and kind of calm the nerves with pushing ourselves to be ready for May 1st. It doesn't matter. Joshua's income is able to take care of a family. We've come in 6 years from zero to hero, and that's beautiful. So during this quarantine, this is the first time in 10 years that I've ever had to stop and actually be able to look at my husband and know that he can completely take care of us. And I've placed myself on the board with properties, building properties, and owning my own space that has allowed me to shift my roles. I have different titles. I opened up Sheer Properties. I'm a landlord. I opened up an opportunity to build properties, and now my salon is shut down. That's my baby. That's my bread and butter. That's my foundation. Nothing else gets done without my foundation. It's my 20-year career that God has bestowed on me to love. I love this career. And now my husband sees me like I go stir crazy in this house if I don't find something to do, hence the video. We have transformed as a family. Here we are 5 years later, I'm writing a cookbook. I love being vegan. I have never loved food more than I have when I started being vegan. When Joshua fell and needed time to pick himself back up, I needed to focus on something. So something that was in my control was food. And the one thing I had never actually looked at or researched was veganism. I cook vegan foods now where I'm going to create a cookbook and an outdoor kitchen to have cooking classes and serve vegan food to my tourists that are going to be staying in my guest house. And so we are working on these things over here, but I wanted to share this video with you. You know, as families, if we are going to work so hard on our dreams and our goals, there are going to be times where we're going to hit rock bottom so that we can be refined. But I want to let you know that don't give up in those moments, because we didn't give up on those moments. Now, we also said what needed to be said in those moments. Those dark, ugly, dreary, rock bottom moments, we got it out. We don't mess around in the Suggs house. We talk what really needs to be talked about. We don't like it, you're going to hear it. We're afraid, or we don't know if something should have happened that way, we're going to talk about it. If it's sexual, definitely going to be talked about. If it's monetary, we all got to look at it. We all got to figure it out. Our little guy is so independent, we do not cater to him. 16 and a half, knows how to deal with money, read David Ramsey, lives on the envelope system, saving money to buy a car. We empower him. In this home, we want to be independently supportive of one another. This isn't a dictatorship. This isn't the welfare system. This is every single one of our family members needs to know that their body is enough. Their mind is enough. Their hands can do. Their hands can change. Same with their feet and their brain. So just kind of like recapping, Logan and I are just home during the day if he's not at work, and we are working on this guest house because Logan and I are going into business together, and he's going to study hospitality management and business and editing in college while running a guest house that he physically built with his hands. Now, while I am the investor on the location, he's going to be the new blood. He's going to be all the online presence, all the college backing and understanding of how to run a guest house, and then we're going to buy more properties, and we are going to continue to develop spaces that people want to be a part of while being a family unit that realized the thing that really grounded us was hard work. Spend less, build more, do more with one another. And during this quarantine, this is our life. We never go to the mall. We never go to restaurants. I wear old clothing. I buy cheap jewelry, $1 or $2 to change my outfit. I do my own hair. I take care of my skin. I eat healthy. I don't use teeth whiteners. I use charcoal, baking soda, peppermint oil, all things that I can find that are so affordable and easily resourced. I just don't spend money that way because we never had it. I never had it. We never had it as a couple. And we learned to live on less. Don't go anywhere. That's what we do. I guess we've been quarantining since been quarantining. But I thought I would give you a little glimpse into my life. So I wanted to update my YouTube channel. I do love talking. Honestly, you'd think I would do one of these a day, but I prefer human contact. So I hope this inspires you to seek God, and I hope this inspires you to look at your family as a unit that can change the community by changing yourselves. Have fun. Be safe.